Marcus Chen stood at the massive gates of the Zephyrian royal palace, feeling small beneath the towering crystal spires that reached toward the purple sky. The structure was beautiful but alien, with walls that seemed to grow from the ground, like living gemstones. Light danced through the translucent surfaces in patterns that hurt his human eyes to follow. "Remember, Ambassador," said his assistant, Dr. Sarah Kim, checking her tablet one more time. "The meeting is scheduled for the third bell in the ceremonial wing, room 347B according to the translation protocol." Marcus nodded, adjusting his formal diplomatic uniform. Earth had waited 3 years for this moment. The peace negotiations with the Zephyrian Empire could change everything. These beings controlled 12 star systems and had technology that could help humanity expand beyond their current limitations. But they were also proud, formal, and very different from humans. The cultural briefing says to knock 3 times and wait for permission, Sarah continued. "Remember, they value respect and ceremony above all else." "Got it," Marcus replied, though his stomach felt tight with nerves. "I've been preparing for this for months. What could go wrong?" As he walked through the palace corridors, Marcus marveled at the strange beauty around him. The walls seemed to pulse with soft light, and the air had a sweet smell like flowers he couldn't name. Zephyrian servants moved past him, their skin looking like polished crystal in shades of blue and silver. They wore elaborate robes that clinked softly as they walked. The corridors were confusing, with numbers that didn't follow any pattern Marcus could understand. He turned left, then right, following the directions on his translator device. The third bell had already rung, echoing through the palace like music. He needed to hurry. Finally, he found room 347B. The door was made of the same crystal material as everything else, but it was closed. Marcus could hear soft sounds from inside. Maybe the princess was already waiting for him. He raised his hand to knock, then paused. The sounds were strange, like wind chimes mixed with something else he couldn't identify. Marcus knocked 3 times as instructed and waited. No response came. He knocked again, a little louder. Still nothing. The sounds from inside continued, and he began to worry that perhaps the princess couldn't hear him. The negotiations were too important to be delayed by a simple communication problem. After waiting another minute, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He pressed his hand against the door, and to his surprise, it slid open silently. "Your Highness, I'm sorry to disturb you, but I believe we have a scheduled meeting." Marcus stepped into the room and froze. His words died in his throat as he saw Princess Velnara in the center of the chamber, surrounded by floating pieces of her ceremonial armor. The armor plating, which made Zephyrians look so formal and impressive, was slowly dissolving away from her body in streams of liquid crystal that flowed into special containers around the room. Without her armor, the princess looked completely different. Her skin was pale silver and seemed to glow with its own light. She was delicate, almost fragile-looking, nothing like the imposing figure he had expected to meet. Her large, dark eyes, previously hidden behind crystal face guards, were now fully visible and filled with absolute shock. For a moment, neither of them moved. Marcus realized he was seeing something no outsider was supposed to see. The princess stood like a statue, her eyes wide with what looked like horror and disbelief. I'm so sorry," Marcus stammered, taking a step backward. "I didn't know. The door was—" But before he could finish his sentence, alarms began to sound throughout the palace. The princess had touched something on her wrist, and the room filled with pulsing red light. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridors outside, getting closer. "Guards!" Princess Velnara's voice was high and strained. "Guards to the ceremonial chamber! Immediately!" Marcus raised his hands, trying to show he meant no harm. "Please, Your Highness, I can explain." There was a misunderstanding with the meeting time. I thought— Silence, she commanded, her voice cracking with emotion. You have violated the most sacred of our customs. How dare you enter this space during the cleansing ritual? The guards burst through the door. 6 Zephyrians in full armor carrying weapons that hummed with energy. They surrounded Marcus immediately, their crystal faces showing no emotion behind their protective shields. Seize the human, the princess ordered, her voice shaking. He has committed an act of— She seemed unable to find words for what had happened. Captain Zexmore, the lead guard, stepped forward. His voice was deep and threatening. Ambassador Chen, you are under arrest for violating the sacred privacy of Her Royal Highness. This is a crime punishable by immediate expulsion from our world or by death, depending on the High Council's judgment. Marcus felt his heart sink. Everything was going wrong so quickly. There's been a terrible mistake, he said, trying to keep his voice calm. I was told to come to room 347B at the 3rd bell. I knocked, but there was no answer and— Enough, Captain Zexmore interrupted. The princess was preparing for the ceremony of trust that comes before all important negotiations. No outsider has ever witnessed this sacred ritual. Your presence here is either an act of espionage or the deepest possible insult to our people. Princess Velnara had managed to activate some kind of emergency clothing that covered her in simple silver robes. She looked shaken, but was trying to regain her composure. Remove him from my sight, she said quietly. I cannot proceed with any negotiations after this violation. The ceremony is ruined. Everything is ruined. As the guards prepared to escort Marcus away, he saw something in the princess's eyes that gave him hope. Behind the shock and anger, there was something else. Confusion, perhaps even curiosity. She had looked at him not with the disgust he might have expected, but with surprise at his reaction. He had not fled in horror or shown the fear that other species might have. He had simply apologized and tried to explain. But now, as they led him away, Marcus wondered if that small spark of understanding would be enough to save not just his life, but the future of peace between their peoples. The palace corridors seemed much longer on the way to the detention cells. The detention cell was not what Marcus had expected. Instead of cold metal bars, he found himself in a room made of the same crystal material as the rest of the palace, but the walls were darker, almost black. Soft light came from somewhere he couldn't see, and the air felt heavy with the weight of his mistake. Dr. Sarah Kim arrived an hour later, escorted by 2 guards. Her face was pale with worry. Marcus, what happened? The entire palace is in chaos. They're saying you've committed some kind of terrible crime. Marcus sat on the simple crystal bench that served as furniture in the cell. I walked into the wrong room at the wrong time, Sarah, but apparently it was much worse than just being late for a meeting. Through the translucent walls, they could see Zephyrian officials moving quickly through the corridors. Their usual, calm, dignified pace had been replaced by urgent conversations and rapid gestures. The guards won't tell me anything, Sarah said, sitting beside him. But I heard them talking about the High Council being called into emergency session. Marcus, they're talking about sending the entire human delegation home. The peace negotiations might be over before they even started. Before Marcus could respond, the cell door slid open. An elderly Zephyrian entered, his crystal skin showing the deep blue color that marked him as a scholar or advisor. Unlike the guards, he moved slowly and seemed thoughtful rather than angry. I am Elder Kethval, he said in careful English. I serve as the cultural advisor to the High Council. I have come to help you understand the magnitude of what has occurred. Marcus stood up. Elder Kethval, I want to apologize again. I had no intention of causing any harm or disrespect. If someone could just explain what I did wrong, maybe we can find a way to fix this. The elder's large eyes studied Marcus carefully. That is precisely why I am here, Ambassador Chen. Your people and mine see the world very differently. What seems like a simple mistake to you is something else entirely to us. Elder Kethval gestured, and the air above his hand began to glow with soft images, like a holographic movie that showed Zephyrian culture and history. For thousands of years, the elder began, our people have lived by the principle of protective dignity. We are born with crystal skin that grows thicker as we age, forming natural armor that shields us from both physical harm and emotional vulnerability. The images showed young Zephyrians with thin, almost transparent skin, gradually developing the thick crystal plating that Marcus had seen on adults. The ceremony you witnessed, the removal of one's protective crystals, is the most intimate act in our culture. It represents complete trust and vulnerability. A Zephyrian only performs this ritual in the presence of their life-bond partner or their immediate family. Marcus felt his stomach drop as he began to understand. So when I saw the princess without her armor, you witnessed something that no outsider has ever seen, Elder Kethval confirmed. In our culture, this creates a bond of intimacy whether intended or not. Princess Velnara has been, by the ancient laws of our people, spiritually connected to you through this experience. Sarah gasped. That's why everyone is so upset. It's not just about privacy, it's about sacred bonds and marriage traditions. The elder nodded sadly. The princess is now considered soul-touched by a human. This has never happened before in our history. Some members of the High Council believe this makes her unfit to rule. Others think it means she must exile herself from our society. Marcus ran his hands through his hair, feeling the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. But I didn't know. How can there be consequences for something I didn't understand? Ignorance is no defense in matters of the soul, Elder Kethval replied. However, there is something unusual about this situation that has caught the attention of several council members, including myself. The elder paused, as if deciding whether to continue. Princess Velnara's reaction to your presence was unexpected. What do you mean? Marcus asked. When other species have accidentally seen a Zephyrian in their natural state, which has happened perhaps 3 times in our recorded history, they have responded with revulsion or fear. Our unarmored forms are strange to most alien eyes. But you, according to the princess's own testimony, you showed neither fear nor disgust. You simply apologized and tried to leave. Sarah leaned forward. Is that important? Elder Kethval's crystal face showed what might have been a smile. It is unprecedented. Princess Velnara told the Emergency Council that your reaction was one of respect and concern for her comfort, not horror at her appearance. This has never happened before. Through the crystal walls, they could see more officials gathering in the corridor outside. Their voices were getting louder, and Marcus could sense the tension even without understanding their language. There's something else, the elder continued, lowering his voice. Princess Velnara has requested something that has shocked the entire council. She wants to speak with you again. Marcus stood up quickly. She does. But I thought I had dishonored her beyond forgiveness. By all traditional measures you have. But the princess is, how do you humans say, thinking outside the crystal? She has told the council that perhaps this incident reveals something important about human nature that could benefit our people. What kind of thing? Sarah asked. Elder Kethval looked around carefully, then leaned closer. She believes that humans might possess a unique ability to see past surface appearances to the being beneath. In Zephyrian society, we are defined by our crystal armor, its thickness, its color, its design. But you saw her without any of that, and you treated her simply as a person deserving of respect. Marcus felt a spark of hope. Does this mean the negotiations might continue? That depends entirely on what you do next, the elder replied. The High Council will make their decision tomorrow. They will either order your immediate departure from our world, or they will listen to Princess Velnara's unprecedented request. What request? Marcus asked. Elder Kethavel stood to leave. She wants to establish a new type of diplomatic protocol based on what she calls honest encounter. She believes that if humans and Zephyrians can turn this cultural collision into deeper understanding, we might achieve a peace stronger than either species has ever known. As the elder reached the door, he turned back. Ambassador Chen, your people have a reputation in the galaxy for turning disasters into opportunities. Tomorrow, we will discover if that reputation is deserved. The cell door slid shut, leaving Marcus and Sarah alone with the weight of an entire species' future resting on one human's next decision. Marcus spent the entire night pacing in his crystal cell, thinking about Elder Keith Vale's words. By morning, he had made a decision that would either save the peace negotiations or end his diplomatic career forever. When Dr. Sarah Kim arrived, with his breakfast, she found him sitting calmly on the crystal bench, looking more determined than worried. "You look different," she said, setting down a tray of strange but edible Zephyrian food. "Did you sleep at all?" "I've been thinking," Marcus replied, "and I've realized that everyone is approaching this situation the wrong way." Sarah sat down beside him. "What do you mean?" "Everyone wants me to apologize, disappear, and hope the incident gets forgotten. That's standard diplomatic protocol when you make a cultural mistake." Marcus stood up and walked to the crystal wall. "But that's not going to work here." "Marcus, you can't just ignore their customs. Elder Kethaval made it clear how serious this is." "I'm not ignoring their customs," Marcus said firmly. "I'm going to do something that no diplomat has probably ever done before. I'm going to ask for a formal audience with Princess Velnara." Sarah's eyes widened. "Are you crazy? She's the one you offended. Why would she want to see you again?" Marcus turned to face her. "Because hiding from this problem isn't going to solve it. The princess is being punished for something that was my mistake. Her reputation is damaged because I walked into the wrong room. That's not fair to her. But the cultural rules are based on the assumption that seeing someone vulnerable always creates shame," Marcus interrupted. "But what if it doesn't have to? What if there's another way to look at what happened?" Before Sarah could respond, the cell door opened. Captain Zexmore entered with 2 guards, his crystal armor reflecting the morning light. "Ambassador Chen," the captain announced formally, "you are to appear before the High Council in 1 hour. They will decide your fate and the future of relations between our peoples." Marcus stepped forward. "Captain, before I appear before the council, I request a formal audience with Princess Velnara." The captain's crystal face showed surprise. "That is highly irregular. The princess is the injured party in this matter. Why would you wish to cause her further distress?" "Because I want to explain something about human culture that might change how we all understand what happened yesterday," Marcus replied. Captain Zexmore was quiet for a long moment. "The princess is preparing for the council meeting. She does not wish to see you." "Then tell her this," Marcus said, his voice growing stronger. "Tell her that in human culture we have a saying, 'The strongest bridges are built over the deepest valleys.' Tell her that I believe yesterday's accident could become the foundation for a better understanding between our peoples, but only if we face it honestly instead of hiding from it." The captain looked confused. "I do not understand your meaning." Marcus took a deep breath. "In human society, when someone sees us at our most vulnerable, it often creates trust rather than shame. We believe that people who accept us as we truly are, without our armor, our pretenses, or our formal masks, are the people worth knowing." Sarah was staring at Marcus with amazement. She had never heard him speak so passionately about anything. "Furthermore," Marcus continued. "I cannot in good conscience allow Princess Velnara to suffer consequences for my mistake. If anyone should be punished or exiled, it should be me. But I believe there's a third option that no one has considered." Captain Zexmore's voice was skeptical. "And what option is that?" "Let me explain to the princess and the council how humans view moments of unexpected honesty. Let me show them that what happened yesterday doesn't have to be a source of shame for anyone. It could be the beginning of a new kind of diplomatic relationship based on genuine understanding rather than formal ceremony." The captain was quiet for several minutes, clearly thinking. Finally, he spoke. "Your request is unprecedented. In normal circumstances, I would refuse immediately. However," he paused, "Princess Velnara has been asking unusual questions about human customs since yesterday. Perhaps she would be willing to hear what you have to say." 30 minutes later, Marcus found himself in a small meeting room deep within the palace. The walls were clear crystal, allowing natural light to fill the space. Princess Velnara sat across from him, wearing simple silver robes instead of her formal armor. Her crystal skin looked pale in the morning light, and her large dark eyes watched him carefully. "You requested this meeting," she said quietly. "Speak." Marcus had prepared for this moment all night, but now that it was happening, he felt the weight of two civilizations resting on his words. "Your Highness, I want to start by saying that I understand I caused you great distress yesterday. That was never my intention, but intentions don't erase consequences. However, I believe we're all looking at this situation in the wrong way." The princess raised one delicate eyebrow. "Explain." "In human culture, there's a concept called beautiful vulnerability. We believe that seeing someone's true self, without their protective layers or formal masks, is actually a gift, not a violation." Princess Velnara leaned forward slightly. "A gift? When someone trusts us enough to be genuine and unguarded in our presence, even by accident, it creates an opportunity for real connection. Yesterday, I didn't see a princess or a political figure. I saw a person, someone real and honest. That's not something to be ashamed of. But our laws, our traditions, your traditions are based on the idea that vulnerability always leads to shame," Marcus said gently. "But what if it could lead to strength instead? What if the fact that I saw you as you truly are and treated you with respect proves something important about the possibility for real friendship between humans and Zephyrians?" The princess was quiet for a long time, her dark eyes studying his face. "You are suggesting that we rewrite thousands of years of cultural law based on one accidental encounter?" Marcus smiled. "I'm suggesting that maybe this accident happened for a reason. Maybe it's showing us that our peoples are more compatible than we thought. You trusted me enough to let me stay in that room for those few seconds instead of attacking me immediately. I respected you enough to apologize and try to leave. That sounds like the beginning of real diplomacy to me." Princess Velnara stood up and walked to the crystal window, looking out at her city. "What you propose is dangerous, Ambassador Chen. If the council rejects this idea, you will face exile or worse." "Some things are worth the risk," Marcus replied. "The friendship between our peoples is one of them." The princess turned back. To him, and for the first time since he'd met her, she almost smiled. "Very well, Ambassador. Let us see if the High Council is ready for a new kind of diplomacy." Princess Velnara led Marcus through corridors he had never seen before, deeper into the heart of the palace. These passages were older, with crystal walls that seemed to pulse with ancient light. The air felt heavy with history and tradition. "The High Council meets in the Chamber of Truth," the princess explained as they walked. "It is where our people have made their most important decisions for over 3,000 years. No lies can be spoken there. The crystals themselves detect deception." Marcus felt his nervousness growing. "That's reassuring," and terrifying at the same time. "Ambassador Chen, Marcus," the princess said, using his first name for the first time. "What you proposed in our private meeting was remarkable, but presenting it to the council will be much more difficult. They are bound by tradition in ways you cannot imagine." They stopped before a massive doorway carved from a single piece of blue crystal. Ancient symbols covered its surface, telling stories Marcus couldn't read but somehow felt the importance of. "Before we enter," Princess Velnara continued, "I must tell you something. After our conversation, I spent hours thinking about what you said, about vulnerability becoming strength, about honest encounters creating trust." Marcus waited, sensing that something important was coming. "I realized that you were right about one thing," she said quietly. "I have never felt more seen or understood than in that moment when you looked at me without my armor and simply treated me as a person. No reverence, no fear, no judgment. Just respect." The princess touched the crystal door, and it began to glow. In our culture, we spend so much time hiding behind our protective layers that we forget what it feels like to be genuine. You reminded me of something I thought I had lost. "What's that?" Marcus asked. "The feeling of being truly myself." The door opened, revealing a circular chamber filled with 12 tall figures in elaborate crystal armor. The High Council of the Zephyrian Empire looked ancient and intimidating, their faces hidden behind ceremonial masks that reflected light in hypnotic patterns. Elder Kethval stood near the center, his blue-tinted crystal marking him as the senior advisor. "Princess Velnara, Ambassador Chen, you have requested this emergency hearing. The council will listen, but know that the precedent of 3 millennia weighs against you." Princess Velnara stepped forward, her silver robes catching the light from the crystal walls. "Honored council members, yesterday's incident has created an opportunity that has never existed before in our history." Council member Yoresh, whose crystal armor was deep red, spoke first. "Princess, you have been compromised by this human's violation of our sacred customs. How can you speak on his behalf?" "Because, council member Yoresh, I have learned something about the nature of strength that our traditions never taught me," the princess replied firmly. Marcus watched in amazement as Princess Velnara began to speak with a passion he had never heard from her before. "For 3,000 years, we have believed that showing our true selves makes us weak. We have built our entire society around hiding, protecting, and maintaining formal distance from others. But what if we have been wrong?" Council member Zalten, whose armor was golden, leaned forward. "You speak of abandoning the wisdom of our ancestors. This is dangerous thinking, Princess." "I speak of expanding that wisdom," Princess Velnara corrected. "Ambassador Chen showed me something yesterday that changed my understanding of what strength really means." She gestured to Marcus, who stepped forward despite his racing heart. "When this human saw me in my most vulnerable state, he did not flee in disgust as our prophecies predicted. He did not try to take advantage of my vulnerability as our laws assume all outsiders would. Instead, he apologized for intruding and attempted to respect my privacy." Council member Ithara, whose crystal armor was green, spoke skeptically. "One polite reaction does not overturn millennia of wisdom." Marcus realized this was his moment. "Council members, may I speak about human culture and how we view moments like yesterday?" Elder Kethaval nodded. "The chamber will hear the human's words." Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the crystal chamber's ancient power. "In human society, we have learned that the people who see us at our worst or most vulnerable and still choose to stand by us are the people we can trust most deeply." He walked slowly around the circle, making eye contact with each council member as he spoke. "We believe that real strength comes not from hiding our true selves, but from being genuine and allowing others to be genuine in return. Yesterday, Princess Velnara and I experienced something that rarely happens between strangers, a moment of complete honesty. Council member Vornon, whose armor was silver like the princess's natural skin, interrupted. But our traditions protect us from the pain that comes from being too open with others. Your traditions protect you from pain, Marcus agreed. But they also protect you from joy, from deep friendship, from the kind of trust that makes real alliances possible. Princess Velnara stepped beside Marcus. The ambassador is right. I have spent my entire life maintaining proper distance from everyone, even my own family. But in that one moment of unexpected honesty, I felt more connected to another being than I ever have before. The council chamber fell silent. The crystal walls seemed to pulse more brightly, as if responding to the emotional intensity of the conversation. Council member Yor Esh spoke again, his voice less harsh than before. What exactly are you proposing, Princess? Princess Velnara and Marcus exchanged glances. They had discussed this during their walk to the chamber. We propose a new diplomatic protocol, the princess said. One based on what Ambassador Chen calls constructive vulnerability. Instead of maintaining formal distance, we would build our alliance on genuine understanding and mutual respect. Marcus added, we would create cultural exchange programs where humans and Zephyrians learn to see past surface differences to the people beneath. We would base our partnership on who we really are, not just on formal ceremonies and careful politeness. Elder Kethaval stroked his crystal chin thoughtfully. This is unprecedented. You are asking us to fundamentally change how we interact with other species. We're asking you to try a new kind of strength, Princess Velnara replied, one that builds bridges instead of walls. Council member Zaltan leaned back in his crystal chair. And if this experiment fails? If opening ourselves to humans leads to betrayal or conquest? Marcus felt the truth of his next words in his bones. Then you will have learned something important about us, and you can return to your traditional ways. But if it succeeds, you will have gained allies who truly understand and value who you are as individuals, not just as a political entity. The council members began to whisper, among themselves in their musical language. Marcus could see that some looked intrigued, while others seemed concerned. Finally, Elder Kethval stood. The council will deliberate until sunset. Princess Velnara, Ambassador Chen, you have given us much to consider. We will announce our decision when the evening star appears. As they left the chamber, Princess Velnara touched Marcus's arm gently. Whatever they decide, I want you to know that you have already changed something important in me. And that change will not be undone, regardless of the council's vote. Marcus looked at her and realized that somewhere in the past 2 days, real friendship had begun to form between two very different beings. Maybe that was what the future of diplomacy could look like. The sun was setting over the crystal spires of the Zephyrian palace, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. Marcus stood on the balcony outside his guest quarters, watching the evening star appear just above the horizon. In a few minutes, he would learn whether his diplomatic career was over or just beginning in a completely new way. Dr. Sarah Kim joined him on the balcony, carrying 2 cups of the sweet Zephyrian tea they had grown to enjoy during their stay. How are you feeling? She asked, handing him a cup. Marcus sipped the tea and smiled slightly. Strangely calm, actually. I think we did everything we could. The rest is up to the council. And Princess Velnara? She's been amazing, Marcus replied. I never expected her to support this idea so strongly. She's risking her entire future as a leader for something she believes in. Before Sarah could respond, they heard the sound of crystal chimes echoing across the palace. The evening announcement was beginning. Citizens of Zephyria, came Elder Kethval's voice through the palace communication system. The High Council has reached a decision regarding the unprecedented events of the past 2 days. Marcus and Sarah exchanged nervous glances as they made their way quickly to the council chamber. The corridors were filled with Zephyrian palace staff, all moving in the same direction. Word of the unusual council meeting had spread throughout the complex. The Chamber of Truth was more crowded than Marcus had ever seen it. Besides the 12 council members, dozens of Zephyrian officials, guards, and advisors filled the crystal galleries surrounding the central floor. Princess Velnara stood near the council circle, her silver robes catching the light from the ancient crystal walls. Elder Kethaval rose from his seat, his blue crystal armor reflecting the chamber's ancient glow. Ambassador Marcus Chen of Earth, please step forward. Marcus walked to the center of the chamber, feeling hundreds of crystal-covered eyes watching his every move. The weight of the moment pressed down on him like a physical force. Ambassador Chen, Elder Kethaval began formally. 3 days ago, you committed what our laws define as a grave violation of our most sacred customs. By ancient tradition, such actions require immediate punishment and permanent exile from our world. Marcus felt his heart sink, but he kept his expression steady. However, the elder continued, the events that followed your mistake have revealed something unexpected about human nature and about the possibilities for our future relationship with your species. Elder Kethaval gestured to the other council, members who all stood in unison. Princess Velnara has presented to this council a proposal unlike any in our 3,000-year history. She has asked us to see your cultural violation not as a source of shame, but as an opportunity for unprecedented understanding between our peoples. Council member Yoresh stepped forward, his red crystal armor gleaming. Ambassador Chen, your response to witnessing our princess in her most vulnerable state showed a respect and dignity that we did not believe was possible from an outsider. You have challenged our assumptions about both human nature and the meaning of strength. Marcus dared to feel a spark of hope. Council member Zalten spoke next. Your proposal for constructive vulnerability in diplomatic relations is radical and dangerous. It goes against everything our ancestors taught us about protecting ourselves from potential enemies. Marcus's hope faltered again. But Zalten continued, it also offers possibilities for alliance and friendship that we have never imagined. After lengthy deliberation, we have decided to accept your proposal. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs from the gathered Zephyrians. Marcus felt his knees go weak with relief. Elder Kethaval raised his hand for silence. The High Council hereby establishes the Protocol of Honest Encounter, to be implemented immediately in all future diplomatic relations between the Zephyrian Empire and humanity. Princess Velnara stepped forward, her face showing joy for the first time since Marcus had met her. Furthermore, Ambassador Chen, the Council has voted to grant you honorary Zephyrian citizenship and the title of Bridge Builder, the first human ever to receive such recognition. The crystal walls of the chamber began to glow more brightly, as if responding to the historic nature of the moment. Council member Ithara announced the next part of the decision. Princess Velnara will serve as our first cultural ambassador to Earth, tasked with implementing these new diplomatic protocols and building the foundations for lasting friendship between our peoples. Marcus looked at the princess, seeing the excitement in her large, dark eyes. She had not only supported his idea, but had volunteered to dedicate her life to making it work. Elder Kethaval continued with the final announcements. Beginning next month, we will establish cultural exchange programs between our worlds. Young humans and Zephyrians will live among each other's peoples, learning to see past surface differences to the individuals beneath. Additionally, Council. Member Vornan added, we will create joint research projects, shared artistic endeavors, and collaborative exploration missions. This alliance will be built not on political necessity, but on genuine friendship and mutual understanding. As the formal announcements concluded, Marcus found himself surrounded by Zephyrian officials wanting to shake his hand and congratulate him. The atmosphere in the chamber had transformed from tense uncertainty to celebration. Princess Velnara approached him through the crowd. "Ambassador Chen, Marcus, we did it. We actually convinced them to try something completely new." Marcus smiled, still hardly believing what had happened. "You did most of the convincing, Your Highness. I just provided the idea. You had the courage to fight for it. Please call me Velnara." "I think we're past formal titles now," she replied with what was definitely a smile. "And I have something to tell you. I've already been in communication with your Earth government. They're as excited about these new protocols as we are." Dr. Sarah Kim pushed through the crowd to reach them, her face beaming with excitement. "Marcus, do you realize what this means? You've just created a completely new model for interspecies diplomacy. Other alien governments are already asking about these honest encounter protocols." Elder Kethval joined their small group. "Ambassador Chen, your people have a saying, do they not? About making lemonade from lemons?" Marcus laughed. "Something like that, yes. You have turned what could have been a diplomatic disaster into the foundation for the strongest alliance in galactic history," the elder said. "This is a very human trait, I believe." 3 months later, Marcus stood in the same ceremonial chamber where his adventure had begun. But everything was different now. The room had been converted into a cultural exchange center, where humans and Zephyrians worked side by side on projects that would have been impossible before. Princess Velnara approached, wearing simple human-style clothes instead of her crystal armor. She looked comfortable and happy in a way Marcus had never seen before. "Any regrets about walking into the wrong room that day?" she asked playfully. Marcus looked around at the humans and Zephyrians laughing and working together, at the genuine friendships that had formed between two very different species, at the future they were building together. "Not a single one," he replied. "Sometimes the best destinations are the ones you never plan to reach." Outside the crystal windows, human and Zephyrian ships prepared for their first joint exploration mission to the far edge of the galaxy, carrying crews who trusted each other not because of formal treaties, but because they had learned to see the people behind the different faces. The age of honest diplomacy had begun.